I waited half a century to speak, and one truth destroyed him forever. Please like and subscribe this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you are listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is Margaret Eleanor Hayes, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 72 years old, and I'm about to tell you the craziest damn story of my life. Now, I know what you're thinking. Some sweet old grandma baking cookies and knitting scarves, right? Well, honey, buckle up, because this grandma just pulled off the revenge of the century on her no-good, lying, cheating husband of 50 years. Yeah, you heard that right. 50 years. It all started on a Tuesday morning in March. Nothing special about that day, or so I thought. I was sitting at my kitchen table sipping my coffee, black, 2 sugars, the same as I'd been drinking for half a century, when my phone buzzed. It was one of those smartphones my grandson Tommy had set up for me. I still couldn't figure out half the buttons, but I could read a text message just fine. The message was from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Hayes, I think you should know the truth about your husband. Meet me at Rosie's Diner on Main Street at 2 p.m. today. Come alone. This is important. My heart started thumping like a jackhammer in my chest. Now, I've watched enough Dateline to know that mysterious messages don't usually lead anywhere good. But I also knew that after 50 years with Harold Hayes, I'd earned the right to know whatever truth was out there. Harold was at his weekly poker game with the boys, or at least that's what he told me every Tuesday. I looked at our wedding photo on the mantel. We were so young then, so full of hope. I was 22, wearing my mama's wedding dress, and Harold was 25 in a borrowed suit. We didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but we had love. Or so I thought. I grabbed my purse and my car keys. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't gonna let fear stop me. This old broad still had some fight left in her. Rosie's Diner was the kind of place that hadn't changed since 1965, and that was exactly how we liked it. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and a jukebox that still played Elvis. I walked in at exactly 2 o'clock, my eyes scanning the room. A young woman, maybe 35, with dark hair and tired eyes, waved at me from a corner booth. She looked nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. "Mrs. Hayes?" she asked as I slid into the booth across from her. "That's me. And you are?" "My name is Jennifer. Jennifer Morrison." She took a deep breath. "I'm your husband's daughter." Well, knock me over with a feather. I just sat there, my mouth hanging open like a codfish. For a minute, I couldn't even find words. "Excuse me," I finally managed to croak out. "I know this is a shock," Jennifer said quickly. "Believe me, I didn't want to do this. But my mom just passed away last month, and before she died, she told me everything. She made me promise I'd find you and tell you the truth." I felt like I was underwater, hearing everything through a thick fog. "What truth?" I asked, even though part of me didn't want to know. Jennifer pulled out an old photograph and slid it across the table. It showed a much younger Harold with his arm around a pretty blonde woman. They were both smiling, looking happy as clams. "That's my mom, Linda Morrison. She and your husband had an affair that lasted 5 years back in the 70s. I was born in 1978. Harold is my biological father, though he's never acknowledged me. My mom said he gave her money to keep quiet and stay away." My coffee had gone cold in my hands. I set the cup down carefully, afraid I might throw it otherwise. 5 years, I repeated slowly. 1973 to 1978. "Yes, ma'am. Those were the years when Harold's construction business was taking off. He was gone all the time, working late, traveling to job sites. I'd been home raising our 3 kids, Michael, Sarah, and little Danny. I trusted him completely. What a fool I'd been. Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "After all these years?" Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Because my mom died with regrets. She said it wasn't right what they did to you. And because..." She hesitated. "Because I have 2 kids of my own now, and I thought maybe they deserved to know their grandfather. But when I tried to contact Harold last month, he told me to get lost. Said he didn't know what I was talking about and to never contact him again. That sounded like Harold, all right. He never did like dealing with messy situations. He hung up on me, Jennifer continued. Called me a liar and a scam artist. But Mrs. Hayes, I have proof. DNA tests my mom had done years ago documents everything. I'm not after his money. I just wanted him to acknowledge the truth. I looked at this young woman across from me and saw something familiar in her eyes. They were the same shade of blue-gray as our son Michael's eyes. The same as Harold's eyes. Do you have those documents with you? I asked quietly. She nodded and pulled out a folder. Inside were DNA test results, old letters in Harold's handwriting, bank statements showing payments made to Linda Morrison, and even a birth certificate that listed the father as unknown, but with Harold's name written in pencil in the margin. I looked through it all, my hands surprisingly steady now. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by something else. Something cold and hard and sharp. Anger. 50 years. 50 years I'd devoted to that man. I'd raised his children, cooked his meals, washed his clothes, nursed him through illnesses, celebrated his successes, and comforted him through his failures. I'd given up my own dreams of going to college. I'd put my life on hold to be Mrs. Harold Hayes. And the whole time he'd been lying to my face. Jennifer, I said, looking up at her. Thank you for telling me. I know this couldn't have been easy for you. What are you going to do? She asked nervously. I smiled, and it felt like the first real smile I'd cracked in years. Oh, honey, I'm gonna do something I should have done a long time ago. I'm gonna take back my life. And I'm gonna make sure your father learns that you don't mess with a woman who's got nothing left to lose. I didn't confront Harold right away. No, sir. I've learned a thing or two in my 72 years, and the main one is this: knowledge is power. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made my move. That night I acted normal as pie. Made Harold his favorite pot roast, asked him about his poker game, smiled and nodded when he told me about Bill's bad jokes and Sam's even worse betting strategy. The whole time I was watching him with new eyes, wondering what else he'd been lying about. When Harold went to bed, I stayed up. I told him I was watching my shows, but really I was planning. I made a list of everything I needed to find out. Was Jennifer the only one? Where had all our money really gone over the years? What else had Harold been hiding? How could I protect myself financially? How could I make him pay? Over the next few weeks, I turned into a regular private investigator. It was kind of fun, actually, like being in one of those spy movies. Made me feel young again. First thing I did was check our financial records. Now, Harold had always handled the money. He said I didn't need to worry my pretty little head about it. I'd been dumb enough to go along with that for 50 years. But I still had access to our bank accounts online. Thank God for Tommy teaching me about computers. What I found made my blood boil. For the past 30 years, Harold had been making regular withdrawals. Small amounts, usually $200 or $300 here and there. Individually, they didn't look suspicious. But when I added them all up, we were talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that had just vanished into thin air. I also found a secret credit card I didn't know about. The statements went to Harold's email, which I now had access to because he kept all his passwords written on a little notepad in his desk drawer. I told you he wasn't too bright about some things. That credit card told quite a story. Restaurant charges at places we'd never been together. Hotel rooms in cities where he supposedly had business meetings. Jewelry purchases I'd never received. Flowers sent to addresses I didn't recognize. I sat there in the dark glow of the computer screen, tears running down my wrinkled cheeks. But I wasn't crying from sadness anymore. I was crying from rage. My phone rang, making me jump. It was my daughter Sarah, calling from California. Hey Mom. Just checking in. How are you and Dad? I almost told her everything right then and there. But I bit my tongue. We're fine, sweetie. Just fine. We chatted for a few minutes about her kids, her job, the weather. Normal stuff. When we hung up, I felt guilty for lying to her. But I knew I had to handle this my way on my own terms. The next day I called Jennifer back. We met at the same diner. I need your help, I told her. I want to know everything. Every woman, every lie, every dirty secret. Can you help me with that? Jennifer looked surprised but also kind of impressed. You're really going after him, aren't you? Damn straight I am. That man stole 50 years of my life. Time to pay the piper. As it turned out, Jennifer was pretty good with computers, way better than me. She worked in IT or something technical like that. Between the two of us, we started digging deeper into Harold's past. What we found was like opening Pandora's box. Linda Morrison hadn't been the only one. Not by a long shot. There had been at least 4 other women that we could document over the years. Harold had a type, apparently, younger women, usually single mothers struggling to make ends meet. He'd sweep in, play the generous savior, have his fun, and then disappear when things got complicated. He'd never left me. Oh no, that would have required actually dealing with consequences. He just juggled multiple lives like some kind of twisted circus act. One woman, Carol Hendricks, had even filed a paternity suit against him back in 1985. Harold had paid her off and made her sign a non-disclosure agreement. I found the paperwork buried in a locked file cabinet in our garage. That meant Jennifer probably had half-siblings out there she didn't even know about. And my own kids, Michael, Sarah, and Danny, had brothers and sisters they'd never met. The more I discovered, the angrier I got. But I also got smarter. I started documenting everything, making copies, taking pictures. I opened my own secret bank account and started transferring money into it, just a little at a time from our joint account. Harold never noticed. He was too busy keeping track of his lies to pay attention to what I was doing. I also did something else. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, mind you. I called Patricia Morgan, the toughest divorce attorney in the county. She had a reputation for taking men to the cleaners, and brother, she'd earned it. Mrs. Hayes, she said when we met in her office, tell me everything. So I did. I laid it all out, the affairs, the secret children, the missing money, the whole sordid mess. Patricia listened, taking notes, her eyes getting wider and wider. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and whistled. Wow, your husband is a real piece of work. Tell me something I don't know. What can I do? Well, legally, you're entitled to half of everything in a divorce. But given what you've told me, we might be able to do better than that. These secret withdrawals, the hidden credit card, the payoffs to mistresses, that's financial infidelity. Some judges take a very dim view of that. I don't just want a divorce, I told her. I want justice. Patricia smiled. Then let's get you some justice. Over the next month, I continued playing the dutiful wife while secretly preparing for war. I gathered every piece of evidence I could find. I tracked down 2 more of Harold's former mistresses and got them to talk to me. Turns out they weren't too fond of him either. One of them, a woman named Rebecca, actually apologized to me with tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, she said. He told me you two were separated, practically divorced. I never would have gone near him if I'd known the truth. It's not your fault, I told her. And I meant it. Harold was the liar, not these women. They'd been deceived just like me. I also started preparing myself emotionally. I talked to my best friend Dorothy, who'd been divorced herself 20 years ago. She gave me the courage to see this through. Maggie, she said, you've been asleep for 50 years. It's time to wake up and take back your life. She was right. I'd been sleepwalking through my marriage, content to play the role everyone expected of me. But I wasn't dead yet, and I'd be damned if I was going to spend my remaining years with a man who didn't respect me. I also went to see a therapist. Yeah, a therapist at my age. Dr. Susan Chun was a lovely young woman who specialized in helping older people through major life transitions. She helped me understand that leaving Harold wasn't selfish. It was self-preservation. You deserve happiness, Mrs. Hayes, she told me. And you deserve honesty. It's not too late to start over. Start over at 72. The thought was terrifying and exciting all at once. Meanwhile, Harold carried on like nothing was wrong. He was planning a big 50th anniversary party for us. Can you believe that? The nerve of the man. He wanted to rent out the community center, invite all our friends and family, celebrate 50 years of marriage. 50 years of lies, more like it. I played along. That sounds wonderful, dear, I said sweetly. Let's make it a party no one will ever forget. And believe me, it would be unforgettable. Just not in the way Harold was expecting. Planning the perfect revenge took patience. I had to be smart about it, calculating. This wasn't just about getting even, it was about getting free. Patricia, my lawyer, helped me understand what I needed to do legally to protect myself. First thing was making sure I had access to all our financial information. We documented every asset. The house, Harold's pension, our savings accounts, the vacation property up at the lake, his classic car collection that he loved more than he'd ever loved me. The anniversary party is in 6 weeks, I told Patricia during one of our meetings. I want to file for divorce the day after. She raised an eyebrow. Any particular reason for the timing? Because I want one last chance to look that man in the eye, while he thinks he's gotten away with everything. I want to see him smile and shake hands and accept congratulations for 50 years of marriage. And then I want to pull the rug right out from under him. Patricia grinned. I like the way you think, Mrs. Hayes. But I wanted more than just a divorce. I wanted Harold to understand the weight of what he'd done. I wanted him to face the truth in front of everyone who mattered. That's when I got my brilliant idea. See, Harold had always been big on his reputation. He was a deacon at our church, a member of the Rotary Club, the guy everyone respected in our little town. He'd built this image of himself as a family man, a pillar of the community, a success story. His ego was the size of Texas. What if I took that away from him? I started planning the party with a smile on my face. Harold thought I was just being a dutiful wife, organizing the celebration of our marriage. He had no clue I was actually planning his public execution. I invited everyone. And I mean everyone. Our kids and grandkids, of course. All of Harold's poker buddies. People from church. Neighbors. Old friends from back in the day. Harold's business associates. The mayor, who Harold had golfed with for years. And I invited a few special guests that Harold didn't know about. Jennifer Morrison and her 2 kids. Carol Hendricks and her son. Rebecca and another one of Harold's former mistresses, Angela. I even tracked down Linda Morrison's sister, who agreed to come and represent her late sister's memory. I told each of them what I was planning. At first, they were hesitant. Who could blame them? It was going to be awkward as hell. But when I explained that this wasn't about humiliation for humiliation's sake, it was about truth and accountability, they understood. Harold has spent decades lying and hiding. I told them. He's hurt a lot of people. It's time for him to face what he's done. They all agreed to come. I also hired a professional photographer and videographer. Harold thought it was for memories. In reality, I wanted evidence. I wanted documentation of this moment that would live forever. The weeks flew by in a blur of preparation. I ordered a fancy cake, arranged for catering, rented tables and chairs. I even bought a new dress. A beautiful navy blue number that made me feel like $1,000,000. If I was going out, I was going out in style. My kids started arriving a few days before the party. Michael flew in from Texas with his wife and 3 kids. Sarah drove up from California with her husband and 2 daughters. Danny, who lived just one town over, came by with his partner James and their adopted son. They all hugged me and told me how great I looked. If only they knew what was coming. The night before the party, I barely slept. I kept running through the plan in my head, making sure I hadn't forgotten anything. Part of me wondered if I was doing the right thing. Maybe I should just file for divorce quietly, divide up the assets, and move on with my life without all the drama. But then I thought about all those years, all those lies, all those women and children that Harold had abandoned, all the money he'd hidden, all the times I defended him, supported him, stood by him while he was making a fool of me behind my back. No, he deserved this. And more importantly, I deserved this. I deserved to speak my truth. The day of the party was beautiful, sunny and warm, perfect weather for an outdoor celebration. The community center had a lovely patio area where we set up the tables and chairs. White tablecloths, fresh flowers, the works. It looked like something out of a magazine. Harold was in his element, grinning from ear to ear, wearing his best suit and shaking hands like he was running for mayor. He kept putting his arm around me, kissing my cheek, playing the devoted husband role to the hilt. I smiled and nodded and played along. But inside, my heart was hammering with nervous energy. Guests started arriving around 2 o'clock. The party was in full swing by 3. There must have been 200 people there, maybe more. Everyone was eating, drinking, laughing, having a grand old time. Harold's poker buddies gave toasts. Bill told embarrassing stories about Harold's bad betting habits. Sam talked about what a great friend Harold had been over the years. Everyone laughed and clinked their glasses. Our kids gave speeches too. Michael talked about what a great dad Harold had been, always providing for the family, always there when they needed him. Sarah told stories about Harold teaching her to ride a bike and walking her down the aisle at her wedding. Danny thanked Harold for accepting him when he came out, for loving James like a second son. Each speech was like a knife in my heart, because I knew the truth. Harold hadn't been there all the time. He'd been off with his mistresses. He hadn't walked Sarah down the aisle out of pure love. He'd done it to maintain his image. And he'd only accepted Danny after months of cold silence and judgment. But I kept smiling, kept nodding, kept playing my part. Around 4 o'clock, it was time for Harold and me to give our speeches. Harold went first, of course. He always had to be the center of attention. He stood up, tapping his glass to get everyone's attention. The crowd quieted down. "Thank you all for coming," Harold began, his voice booming across the patio. 50 years. Can you believe it? Half a century with this beautiful woman right here. He gestured at me and everyone applauded. I waved, feeling sick to my stomach. "Margaret Eleanor Hayes, you have been my rock," Harold continued. "Through thick and thin, through good times and bad, you've stood by me. You've raised our wonderful children. You've made our house a home. And you've loved me unconditionally. I am the luckiest man alive." More applause. Some people were actually tearing up. If only they knew. "Here's to 50 more years," Harold said, raising his glass. "I love you, Maggie." "I love you too," I lied, clinking my glass against his. Then it was my turn. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking a little. I'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in my head, but now that it was here, I felt terrified. This was it, the point of no return. I looked out at the crowd, all those familiar faces, looking at me with love and warmth. My children, my grandchildren, my friends, and scattered among them the others. Jennifer sitting in the back with her kids. Carol nursing a glass of wine. Rebecca and Angela, looking nervous but determined. "Thank you all for being here today." I began, my voice surprisingly steady. 50 years is a long time. A lifetime, really. Harold and I have been through a lot together. People nodded, smiled, waited for me to continue with the expected platitudes. We've raised 3 beautiful children. We've built a life here in this town. We've made memories that I'll treasure forever. I paused, taking a deep breath. This was it. But I've also learned something important over these 50 years. I continued. I've learned that a marriage can only work if it's built on honesty and trust. And I've learned that without those things, a marriage is just a lie that 2 people tell themselves and everyone around them. The crowd was starting to shift uncomfortably. They could sense something was off. Harold was looking at me with confusion and the first hints of alarm. You see, I went on, my voice growing stronger. What none of you know, what I didn't know until recently, is that Harold has been living a double life for decades. Actually, make that a triple life. Or quadruple. It's hard to keep count. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Harold's face went pale. Maggie, he said urgently. What are you doing? I ignored him. Harold has had numerous affairs over the course of our marriage. With multiple women. Some of these affairs lasted for years. And some of them resulted in children. The gasps turned into shocked murmurs. People were turning to each other, whispering. My own children looked like they'd been slapped. That's a lie. Harold shouted, standing up. She's confused. She's been having some memory problems. I'm not confused, Harold, I said firmly. And I have proof. Jennifer, would you please stand up? In the back, Jennifer stood. All eyes turned to her. This is Jennifer Morrison, I announced. She is Harold's daughter, born in 1978 to a woman named Linda Morrison. Harold had a 5-year affair with Linda, while I was at home raising our 3 children. Jennifer raised her hand in an awkward wave. The crowd was dead silent now. And this is Carol Hendricks, I continued as Carol stood up. Harold had an affair with her in the mid-80s. She has a son, Brian, who is also Harold's child. Harold paid her off to keep quiet about it. Harold's face had gone from pale to bright red. He looked like he might have a heart attack. Part of me felt bad about that, but only a very small part. There are others too, I said. Rebecca, Angela, would you ladies stand up? They did, looking uncomfortable but resolute. My husband has been cheating on me for most of our marriage, I said, my voice echoing across the silent patio. He's lied to me, stolen from our joint accounts to pay off his mistresses, and abandoned his own children. The man you all think you know, the respected businessman, the church deacon, the devoted husband, is a fraud. This is insane. Harold sputtered. Maggie, you're having some kind of breakdown. Someone call a doctor. But people weren't rushing to his defense. They were just staring, shocked and uncertain. I'm not having a breakdown, I said calmly. I'm having a breakthrough. I'm finally seeing things clearly for the first time in 50 years. I pulled out a folder from under the table. The folder containing all the evidence Patricia and I had gathered. Copies of DNA tests, bank statements, letters, photographs. I held it up for everyone to see. I have documentation of everything, I said. Harold's affairs, his secret children, the money he's hidden from me over the years. It's all here. And my lawyer has copies of everything. Harold lunged toward me, trying to grab the folder. But Michael and Danny were faster. They stepped between us, blocking their father. Dad, Michael said quietly, his voice shaking. Is this true? Harold looked at his sons, then at Sarah, who was openly crying. It's not, I can explain, she's twisting everything. Is true? Sarah demanded. Harold's shoulders slumped. The fight went out of him all at once. Yes, he whispered. Some of it. Not all of it, but some of it. The admission hung in the air like a bomb. I filed for divorce this morning, I said into the stunned silence. The papers will be served to Harold tomorrow. After 50 years of lies, I'm done. I'm finally free. I set down my glass and looked at Harold one last time. He looked old suddenly and small and pathetic. All the power and confidence had drained out of him. "You're a coward, Harold Hayes," I told him. "You never had the guts to be honest with me, to face your responsibilities, to be a real man. You hid behind lies for 50 years. Well, the truth is out now, and you're gonna have to live with it." I turned to the crowd. "I'm sorry to ruin what was supposed to be a celebration, but I'm not sorry for telling the truth. Thank you all for coming. Please enjoy the food and the cake. I paid good money for it." And with that I walked away. Just walked right off that patio, got in my car and drove off. Behind me, I could hear the explosion of voices as everyone started talking at once. But I didn't look back. The first few days after the party were chaotic. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. My kids called, my friends called, people I barely knew called. Everyone wanted to know what happened, wanted to hear my side of the story, wanted to offer support or condemnation. I turned off my phone and went to stay with Dorothy. She made me tea, let me cry on her shoulder, and told me I'd done the right thing. "That took guts, Maggie," she said. "Real guts. I'm proud of you." The story spread through our small town like wildfire. By the end of the week, everyone knew about Harold's affairs and secret children. His reputation, the thing he'd valued most in the world, was destroyed. Harold tried to do damage control. He gave interviews to the local paper, claiming I'd exaggerated things, that the affairs had been brief mistakes, that he'd always loved me. But the evidence didn't lie. People had seen Jennifer and Carol and the others. They'd heard my speech. They knew the truth. The church asked him to step down as deacon. The Rotary Club quietly suggested he take a leave of absence. His poker buddies stopped calling. Even his business partners started distancing themselves. He'd built his whole life on a foundation of lies and respect, and I'd knocked that foundation right out from under him. Meanwhile, I was discovering something amazing: freedom. For the first time in 50 years, I could do whatever I wanted. I didn't have to cook dinner for Harold. I didn't have to wash his clothes or clean up after him. I didn't have to smile and nod while he talked about himself for hours. I didn't have to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. I could just be me. Maggie. Not Mrs. Harold Hayes. Just Maggie. It was terrifying and wonderful all at once. My kids took it hard. Michael was angry at Harold, at me, at the whole situation. He couldn't believe his father had lied to him his whole life. He couldn't believe I'd exposed everything so publicly. "Did you have to do it like that, Mom?" he asked me when we finally talked. "In front of everyone? You humiliated him." "He humiliated himself," I replied. "I just told the truth. Would you have preferred I keep lying to protect his feelings?" Michael didn't have an answer for that. Sarah was more understanding. She'd always been intuitive, and I think part of her had suspected something wasn't right in our marriage. She came to visit me at Dorothy's house and hugged me tight. "I'm sorry, Mom," she said. "I'm sorry you went through all that alone." "I'm not alone anymore," I told her. Danny surprised me. He was actually supportive from the start. "Dad never really accepted me," he said. "Not really. He tolerated me, sure, but I always knew there was a part of him that was disappointed I was gay. Now I understand why. He was too busy hiding his own secrets to deal with mine honestly. You did the right thing, Mom. You deserve better." The divorce proceedings were messy, but Patricia was as good as her word. She fought for every penny I was owed. Harold tried to hide assets, tried to claim poverty, tried every trick in the book. But we had documentation of everything. The secret withdrawals, the hidden credit card, the payoffs to mistresses, it all worked in my favor. In the end, I got the house, half his pension, half of our savings, and the vacation property at the lake. Harold got his precious car collection and his wounded pride. I also insisted on something else. Harold had to pay child support to Jennifer and Carol for all the years he dodged his responsibilities. Retroactive child support right up to the present day. Cost him a fortune, but it was the right thing to do. Jennifer and I became friends through all of this. She introduced me to my secret grandchildren. Her 2 kids, Mark and Lisa. They were wonderful, smart and funny and kind. I started spending time with them, getting to know them. They called me Grandma Maggie, and it made my heart sing. Carol and I developed a friendship too. She told me her side of the story. How Harold had promised her the world and then disappeared when she got pregnant. She'd struggled as a single mom for years while Harold lived in comfort, denying his own son. "I'm so sorry," I told her. "If I'd known, I would have helped you." "It's not your fault," she said. "Harold's the one who should be sorry." But Harold wasn't sorry. Not really. He was just angry that he'd been caught. He fought the divorce every step of the way, trying to make it as difficult as possible for me. But I didn't back down. I'd spent 50 years backing down, going along, keeping the peace. Those days were over. The divorce was finalized 8 months after the party. 8 months felt like 8 years. But when I finally walked out of that courthouse with my decree in hand, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in decades. I was 73 years old, officially single and terrified. What the hell was I supposed to do now? Dorothy had some ideas. "You're gonna live, Maggie. Really live. You're gonna do all the things you never got to do because you were too busy taking care of Harold." "Like what?" I asked. "Like anything you want." So I made a list. A bucket list, I guess you'd call it. Things I wanted to do with whatever time I had left. Travel somewhere I'd always wanted to go, learn something new, make new friends. Try things I'd been too scared to try, help other women in my situation. I started with number 1. I'd always wanted to see Italy, the art, the history, the food. Harold had always said it was too expensive, too much trouble, too far away. But now Harold's opinion didn't matter anymore. I booked a 2-week tour of Italy with a group of other older women. We flew out in September and it was magical. We saw the Colosseum in Rome, the canals of Venice, the art in Florence. We ate pasta and gelato and drank wine. We laughed and took pictures and stayed up late talking. I made friends with the other women on the tour. There was Jean from Ohio, divorced after 40 years. There was Patricia from Georgia, widowed and learning to live alone. There was Mary from New York, who'd never married and had traveled the world on her own terms. We called ourselves the Second Act Sisters. We promised to keep in touch and even planned another trip together for the following year. When I got back home, I tackled number 2 on my list, learning something new. I enrolled in community college classes. Yeah, community college at 73. I took an art history class and a creative writing class. I'd always loved reading and writing, but I'd never had time to pursue it seriously. My art history professor was younger than my grandchildren, but she treated me with respect and patience. My classmates, mostly kids in their 20s, were sweet as pie. They helped me with the computer assignments and seemed genuinely interested in my perspective on the art we studied. "You've actually lived through some of this history, Mrs. Hayes," one girl named Ashley said to me. "That's so cool." Cool. Me. Who would have thought? The creative writing class was even better. I started writing down my story. Everything that had happened with Harold, the discovery, the revenge, the aftermath. My professor, a kind man named Mr. Rodriguez, encouraged me to keep going. "This is powerful stuff, Margaret," he told me. "You have a unique voice. Don't be afraid to use it." So I kept writing. And writing. And writing. It was therapeutic, getting it all out on paper. All the pain, all the anger, all the hope I felt for the future. Number 3 on my list, making new friends, was happening naturally. Between my Italy trip buddies and my college classmates and the other women at my gym. Yeah, I joined a gym too, never too late to get healthy. I was building a whole new social circle. People who knew me as Maggie, not as Harold's wife. Dorothy and I became closer than ever. We went to movies together, tried new restaurants, took day trips to nearby towns. We were like teenagers again, only with senior discounts. For number 4, trying new things, I went a little crazy. I took a cooking class and learned to make sushi. I went ziplining with my granddaughter Emily. Scared the hell out of me, but I did it. I got a tattoo. A small butterfly on my shoulder, symbolizing transformation. My kids thought I'd lost my mind, but I didn't care. Mom's having a midlife crisis at 73, Michael joked to Sarah. Good for her, Sarah replied. Better late than never. But number 5 on my list was the most important, helping other women. I started volunteering at a local women's shelter, working with women who were leaving abusive relationships. I shared my story with them, showed them that it was never too late to start over, that they deserved better. If I can do it at 72, I told them, you can do it too. Don't waste your life on someone who doesn't value you. I also started a blog. Yeah, a blog. Me, the woman who could barely work a smartphone a year ago. I called it Maggie's Second Act. And I wrote about my experiences, my journey from doormat to independent woman. I wrote about the importance of self-worth, about recognizing the signs of infidelity and emotional abuse, about the courage it takes to start over. The blog took off. Women from all over the country started reading it, commenting, sharing their own stories. I was getting hundreds of emails a week from women who were inspired by what I'd done, who were finding the courage to leave their own bad situations. One woman, Linda from Michigan, wrote, I'm 65 years old and I thought it was too late for me. But reading your story gave me hope. I filed for divorce last week. Thank you for showing me the way. Another woman, Susan from Texas, said, my husband has been cheating on me for years, and I knew it, but I was too scared to do anything. Your story made me realize that I deserve better. I'm done being afraid. Reading those messages made everything worth it. All the pain, all the public humiliation, all the difficult conversations. It was worth it if it helped even one woman find the courage to change her life. I also reconnected with some of Harold's other victims. Besides Jennifer and Carol, I tracked down 2 more women who'd had affairs with Harold. We formed a strange sort of support group, Harold's Harem. We jokingly called ourselves. We'd meet for coffee and laugh about what a jerk he'd been and support each other through the healing process. You know what the funny thing is? Angela said during one of our meetings, he wasn't even that great in bed. We all cracked up at that. It felt good to laugh about it, to take away his power by refusing to take him seriously anymore. As for Harold, I heard through the grapevine that he wasn't doing so well. He'd moved into a small apartment across town. His business had taken a hit. Nobody wanted to work with a man who'd been exposed as such a liar. He spent most of his time alone, bitter and angry at the world. Part of me felt sorry for him, but only a very small part. He'd made his choices, and now he had to live with the consequences. My kids gradually came around. Michael took the longest, but even he eventually admitted that I'd done what I had to do. He started bringing his family around more often, and we rebuilt our relationship slowly. Sarah became my biggest cheerleader. She told everyone about her badass mom who'd stood up for herself and started over at 72. She even wrote an article about me for a women's magazine, which led to more publicity for my blog. Danny and James invited me over for dinner regularly. They introduced me to their friends, included me in their social circle. For the first time, I felt like I was really part of Danny's life, not just tolerated on the sidelines. My grandchildren thought I was the coolest grandma ever. Emily, Sarah's oldest, did a school project on me titled My Grandmother, the Rebel. Tommy, Michael's son who'd taught me to use my smartphone, said I was his hero. Grandma, you're like a superhero, he told me. You fought the bad guy and won. The bad guy was my husband, I reminded him. Still counts, he said with a grin. About a year after the divorce, something unexpected happened. I got a call from a television producer in New York City. Her name was Rachel Chun and she'd read my blog. "Mrs. Hayes, I'd love to talk to you about potentially turning your story into a documentary or maybe even a limited series," she said. I thought she was pulling my leg. "You want to make a TV show about me?" "Absolutely. Your story is inspiring. It's about empowerment, about finding yourself, about courage. It's the kind of story women need to hear right now." Long story short, I said yes. Rachel flew out to visit me, interviewed me for hours, talked to my kids and my friends and even some of Harold's former mistresses. She put together a proposal and sold it to a streaming service. 6 months later, they started filming a documentary about my life. They called it Maggie's Revenge, One Woman's Journey to Freedom. It was surreal having cameras follow me around, recreating scenes from the anniversary party, which thank God I'd had videotaped, interviewing everyone involved. They even got Harold to agree to an interview, though he came off looking about as sympathetic as a rattlesnake. The documentary premiered a few months later, and it blew up. Suddenly, I was getting recognized in grocery stores. People wanted my autograph. I was invited to speak at women's conferences and on talk shows. I went on Good Morning America and talked to Robin Roberts about my story. I did an interview with NPR. I spoke at a women's empowerment conference in Chicago to a crowd of thousands. "It's never too late to take back your life," I told them. I was 72 when I finally found the courage to leave. Some of you are in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. You have so much time ahead of you. Don't waste it on someone who doesn't value you. Don't waste it on lies. The standing ovation I got that day made me cry. Happy tears, though. For the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered. Not as someone's wife or someone's mother, but as myself. As Maggie. The documentary led to a book deal. A publisher contacted me and asked if I'd be interested in writing a memoir. Would I be interested? Hell yeah, I would be interested. I spent the next 6 months writing my story in full detail. It was hard reliving all that pain, but it was also cathartic. My creative writing professor, Mr. Rodriguez, helped me edit it. Jennifer read drafts and gave me feedback. Dorothy cheered me on every step of the way. The book? The Last Laugh. A Grandmother's Guide to Revenge and Redemption, was published when I was 75 years old. It hit the bestseller list in its first week. I went on a book tour, traveling to cities all across the country, signing copies, meeting readers. Women lined up by the hundreds to meet me, to tell me their stories, to thank me for giving them courage. One woman, probably in her 80s, took my hand and said, "I've been married for 60 years to a man who treats me like dirt." I thought I was stuck. But after reading your book, I realized it's not too late. I'm leaving him next week. Thank you for showing me the way. I hugged her tight and told her she was brave and strong and deserving of happiness. And I meant every word. The money from the book and the documentary was substantial. More money than I'd ever had in my life. I didn't need it all, so I did something that felt right. I started a foundation. The Maggie Hayes Foundation for Women's Empowerment provided financial assistance and legal support to women leaving abusive or dishonest relationships. We helped them pay for lawyers, find housing, get job training, start over. We'd helped over 500 women in the first year alone. Jennifer came to work for the foundation. So did Carol. We were a team, 3 women who'd been hurt by the same man, now working together to help others. Who would have thought, Jennifer said one day, that something good could come out of all that mess? Life's funny that way, I replied. Harold, meanwhile, had become a cautionary tale. People used his name as a verb. Don't pull a Harold Hayes meant don't cheat and lie and think you'll get away with it. His business had gone under, and last I heard he was working as a manager at a hardware store. He tried to contact me a few times. Emails asking if we could talk. Letters saying he was sorry, phone calls that I never answered. My lawyer advised me not to engage with him, and I was happy to follow that advice. I'd wasted enough of my life on Harold Hayes. I wasn't gonna waste another second. Time has a funny way of putting things in perspective. It's been 4 years now since that anniversary party, since I dropped the bomb that changed everything. I'm 76 years old and I've never been happier. I'm sitting in my living room right now looking around at my life. The house is finally mine, decorated the way I want it. No more of Harold's ugly furniture or his terrible taste in art. I've got bright colors on the walls, plants everywhere, photos of my kids and grandkids covering every surface. There's a stack of letters on my coffee table from women who've read my book or watched the documentary. I try to respond to every single one, even if it's just a few sentences. I know how much it means to feel heard, to feel seen. My phone buzzes. It's a text from the Second Act sisters, Jean, Patricia, and Mary. We're planning our annual trip, this time to Greece. I can't wait. Last year we went to Ireland and it was magical. Dorothy's coming over later for dinner. We're gonna make pasta from scratch, drink too much wine, and watch some ridiculous reality TV show. It's our Thursday night tradition. My kids are all doing well. Michael and I have gotten close again, closer than we've been since he was a little boy. He told me recently that watching me stand up for myself taught him to be braver in his own life. He left a job he hated and started his own company. Sarah calls me every Sunday. We talk for hours about everything and nothing. She tells me I'm her role model, which makes me tear up every time. Danny and James just adopted another child. A little girl from China. They named her Margaret after me. I cried like a baby when they told me. I've got 10 grandchildren now, if you count Jennifer's 2 kids and Carol's son, which I do. They're all mine, biological relation or not. We have big family gatherings where everyone comes together. My legitimate kids mixing with Harold's secret kids. All the grandchildren playing together like cousins should. It's the family I always wanted, just built in an unconventional way. Jennifer and I are especially close. She's become like a daughter to me, and her kids call me Grandma just like the others do. We have lunch every week and talk about everything. She's been dating a nice man named Tom for the past year, and I think he might propose soon. Carol's son Brian is in college now, studying engineering. I helped pay his tuition. Seemed like the least I could do after his father abandoned him. He's a good kid, smart and hardworking. He calls me on my birthday and Mother's Day, which touches my heart. The foundation is thriving. We've helped over 2,000 women now, and we're expanding to open satellite offices in 3 more states. Jennifer runs the day-to-day operations, and I serve as the public face, doing speaking engagements and fundraising. Last month, I spoke at the United Nations for International Women's Day. Me, a 76-year-old grandmother from a small town in America, speaking at the UN. If you told me 5 years ago that would happen, I would have thought you were crazy. But here I am, living a life I never imagined possible. I still think about Harold sometimes. Not with anger anymore, mostly with pity. He threw away everything real for temporary pleasures and ego gratification. He could have had a genuine relationship with me, with his children, with his grandchildren. Instead, he chose lies and secrets, and now he's alone. I heard recently that he's been going to therapy, trying to work through his issues. Good for him, I guess. But it's too little, too late as far as I'm concerned. I hope he finds peace, but I don't need to be part of that journey. I found my own peace without him. My blog is still going strong. I post a few times a week, sharing thoughts on life, aging, relationships, self-worth. I've built a community of thousands of women who support each other, lift each other up, and refuse to settle for less than they deserve. Someone asked me recently if I regret the way I handled things, if I would have done it differently knowing what I know now. Not a chance, I told them. I spent 50 years being quiet, being polite, keeping the peace. I'm done with that. Sometimes you have to make noise to make change. Would it have been easier to leave Harold quietly, without the public spectacle? Sure. But it wouldn't have had the same impact. It wouldn't have helped all those other women find their courage. It wouldn't have exposed the truth about the cost of lies and betrayal. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone else. Sometimes it's about freeing yourself. Last week, something happened that brought everything full circle. I was at the grocery store loading bags into my car when someone called my name. Mrs. Hayes? Maggie Hayes. I turned around and saw a young woman, maybe 30 years old, walking toward me. She looked nervous but determined. Yes, I said. I'm Amanda, she said. Amanda Griffith. I think I might be Harold Hayes's daughter. My heart skipped a beat. After all this time, there were still more secrets coming out. How do you know? I asked gently. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. It was Harold, much younger, with his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. But the resemblance between Amanda and my son Michael was unmistakable. Same eyes, same nose, same chin. My mom just told me before she died, Amanda explained. She said she had a brief affair with a married man named Harold Hayes back in 1990. She never told him about me. She raised me on her own. But she wanted me to know the truth before she passed. 1990, that was the year I'd been hospitalized with pneumonia, when I'd almost died. Harold had been so attentive, so caring, visiting me every day in the hospital. And apparently he'd been sleeping with someone else at the same time. That I should have been angry, should have been hurt. But honestly, I just felt tired. And sorry for this young woman in front of me, who was just learning about her father's duplicity. Come here, I said, opening my arms. Amanda looked surprised but stepped into the hug. It's not your fault, I told her. None of this is your fault. And if you want to know your father, that's between you and him. But if you want to know your family, your brothers and sisters, your nieces and nephews, I can help with that. Amanda started crying. I was so scared to approach you. I thought you'd hate me. Hate you? Honey, you're a victim in this too. Harold's the one who should be ashamed, not you. We went for coffee and Amanda told me her story. Her mother had struggled to raise her alone, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Amanda had always wondered about her father but had been told he was out of the picture. Learning the truth now, after her mother's death, had been devastating. He's still alive, she said. Should I reach out to him? I thought about it carefully before answering. That's your choice, Amanda. But I'll tell you this, don't expect much. Harold isn't good at facing his responsibilities. But whether or not he steps up, you've got family. You've got siblings who would love to meet you. You've got a whole tribe of half-brothers and half-sisters and nieces and nephews. And you've got me if you want. Really? She asked, her eyes filling with tears again. Really? I confirmed. So now I've got another member of the family. Amanda came to Sunday dinner last week and met Michael, Sarah, and Danny. She met Jennifer and Carol and their kids. She met all her nieces and nephews. It was overwhelming for her, but in a good way. I always wanted siblings, she told me at the end of the night. Now I've got a whole bunch of them. Michael, bless his heart, took Amanda under his wing immediately. He gave her his phone number and told her to call him anytime. Sarah invited her to go shopping. Danny and James invited her to their next family game night. Harold's lies had hurt so many people. But we were building something beautiful from the wreckage. A real family, built on honesty and acceptance and love. I'm writing all this down now because I want people to understand something important. It's never too late to change your life. It's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to demand the truth and to refuse to accept less than you deserve. I was 72 when I finally found the courage to leave Harold. 72. Most people would say I was too old, that I should have just accepted my lot and lived out my remaining years in peace. But you know what? I've had more adventures, more joy, More genuine love in the past 4 years than I had in the previous 50 combined. I've traveled to 7 countries. I've written a best-selling book. I've helped thousands of women find the courage to change their lives. I've built real relationships with my children and grandchildren, based on honesty instead of pretense. I've made new friends who know the real me. I've discovered talents and passions I didn't know I had. And I've learned to love myself. That's the biggest thing. For 50 years, I defined myself by my relationship to Harold. I was Harold's wife, the mother of Harold's children, the woman who stood beside Harold. My identity was entirely wrapped up in someone else. Now I'm just Maggie. And Maggie is enough. If you're reading this and you're in a bad relationship, whether it's marriage or friendship or family, please hear me. You deserve better. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve love. And if you're not getting those things, it's not because you're not worthy of them. It's because the other person is incapable of giving them to you. Don't waste your life waiting for someone to change. Don't waste your years making excuses for behavior that hurts you. Don't stay silent to keep the peace. Make noise. Tell the truth. Stand up for yourself. And if you have to blow up your life to rebuild it the right way, do it. I promise you it's worth it. Epilogue today. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and I'm sitting on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the world go by. My garden is in full bloom. I took up gardening 2 years ago. Another thing I never had time for when I was busy being Harold's wife. There's a family barbecue tomorrow. All my kids will be there, all the grandkids, Jennifer and Carol and Amanda and their families. We'll eat too much, laugh too loud, and probably play some ridiculous game that ends in arguments about the rules. It'll be perfect. Dorothy just texted me asking what time to come over tonight for our weekly wine and reality TV session. Jean, Patricia, and Mary are in the group chat making plans for Greece. Mr. Rodriguez emailed to say he's proud of me and can't wait to read whatever I write next. My life is full. Not perfect, whose life is perfect? But real and honest in mine. Harold sent me a letter last month. The first I'd heard from him in over a year. He said he was sorry that he'd been in therapy and was working on himself, that he hoped I was happy. He didn't ask for forgiveness or try to justify what he'd done. He just said he was sorry and that he hoped I was well. I read the letter twice, then put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'll respond. Maybe I won't. Either way is fine. I don't hate Harold anymore. I don't love him either. He's just a person I used to know. Someone from my past who taught me important lessons about what I will and won't accept in my life. The best revenge I've learned isn't about hurting the person who hurt you. It's about building a life so good, so full, so rich that you look back and realize they don't matter anymore. That's real freedom. I'm 76 years old. I've got maybe another 10 or 20 years if I'm lucky and take care of myself. And I plan to make every single day count. I've got places to go, people to meet, things to do. I've got books to write and speeches to give and women to help. I've got grandchildren to spoil and friends to laugh with and adventures to have. I've got a life to live. And Harold? Well, Harold's got his regrets. He can keep them. Me? I'm too busy living to look back. They say living well is the best revenge. I'm here to tell you it's true. Harold took 50 years from me, but I've taken back my future. And that future is bright. So here's to second acts and new beginnings. Here's to courage and truth and standing up for yourself. Here's to revenge served not cold, but hot and fierce and liberating. Here's to being 76 and finally free. And here's to every woman out there who's thinking about making a change, who's scared but brave, who's tired of settling for less than she deserves. Do it. Take the leap. I promise you the landing is worth the fall. My name is Margaret Eleanor Hayes. I'm 76 years old and I got the last laugh. And honey, that laugh is sweet.